Oh hi, thanks for watching my video. So when it comes to the topic of lore, The Sims 4 hasn't quite carried on the legacy from the previous games. Mainly because it was set on an alternative timeline, so there wasn't really a way for them to carry on the storytelling that the older games started. So for this video, I want to briefly look at every single pre-made family in The Sims 4 and look at how the storytelling has evolved over time. The Sims 4 gets a lot of flack for the poor storytelling from many Simmers, myself included, many times. But believe it or not, it has got better. So we're going to work our way through each world and talk about how the lore has evolved in this game. I just want to quickly point out that I'll be touching on every pre-made family placed in a lot. I may mention the odd sim who isn't placed in the world, but probably not every single one. You won't see Father Winter or Baby Ariel here, for example, but I will mention a couple of sims not placed in the world. So let's begin. When The Sims 4 first came out, there were only 2 neighbourhoods that had pre-made families in them. The world of Willow Creek introduced 4 families. There's the BFF family, Liberty, Travis and Summer. They are best friends, living together in one house. What could possibly go wrong? Well, as it happens, nothing seems to be going wrong so far, but maybe the time will come when Summer and Liberty reveal that they both have feelings for Travis. If they do, will that change things? Can they still be best friends if the truth is revealed? We also have the Pancakes family, Bob and Eliza. They're a married couple, but that doesn't mean they don't have their own challenges. They are polar opposites. They don't even sleep in the same bedroom. Can time repair their marriage? Then we have the Spencer Kim Lewis family, Alice, Dennis, Olivia, Eric and Vivian. Alice is the daughter of Dennis, who divorced Alice's mum Lydia previously. Alice's husband Eric moved in with his mum Vivian, and Eric and Alice also have a daughter Olivia. Complicated enough? Good. And of course we have the return of the infamous Goth family. I'll be honest, they feel pretty surface level this time around. The whole family are there, and it's as if Bella had never gone missing before. It's an alternative timeline, so it's not really a factor here. They're still a quirky family with a preference to a more gothic aesthetic, but what will their future look like? I guess you'll have to decide. Whilst it's nice to have information in the family bios at all, you can't help but compare other games. The Sims 2, for example, had various families in the neighbourhood that all knew each other, and their stories are intertwined with the stories of other households. Whereas at this point in The Sims 4, each story is limited to the individual households. Oasis Springs was a similar story to Willow Creek, but this time there were some references to other families, but no direct connection. For example, both the Landgrab and Zest families live in Oasis Springs, and according to their bios, they are relatives. Johnny Zest is a part of the Landgrab family, but he was disowned for dropping out of school and trying to pursue a career as a comedian. If that were the case though, wouldn't it make sense for him to at least know the Landgrabs living in the same neighbourhood and vice versa? Apparently not. Jeffrey, Nancy and Malcolm Landgrab also live in Oasis Springs. They are well-mannered and wealthy. Word on the street, however, is that Nancy and Jeffrey are hiding something. What is their secret? Is it big enough to increase their wealth, or will it destroy their reputation? The Caliente and Lothario family return in Oasis Springs. But again, it's an alternative timeline, so they may as well be any other family. Don is in a relationship with Katrina, despite his relationship with her daughters in a previous game, but there you go. And there's also the Roomy family, Mitchell, Gavin, Zoe and Jay Huntington III. Nothing else to say on them, really. Then the Get Together pack introduced the world of Windenburg. Windenburg is one of the biggest worlds in the game, if not the biggest, and so it comes with loads of pre-made sims. The families are the Bear family. Sisters Yuki and Candy are living in their grandmother's old house. Candy is a DJ who has custody of her teenage sister Yuki, who is a school student, but also a talented computer hacker. The Bjergsen family. Perfectionist Clara lives with her gloomy husband Bjorn and their 2 daughters, Sophia and Elsa. Elsa is a genius child and Sophia is an aspiring musician who dreams of hitting the big time if she doesn't get overshadowed by her little sister. Then there's the Bro family, Sergio and Joaquin. This pair are pretty opposite. Sergio is into technology and Joaquin is a DJ, but they both like the finer things in life and want to make the big bucks with their talent. We have the Free Spirits household, book addict Micah and artsy Ulrika. Not a couple, just roommates, trying to do the best with their skills. They aren't materialistic, so they're not striving for perfection, but they just want to be able to get by. The Fires family. Moira and Dominic are happily in love. Unfortunately for this household, the happiness stops there, as their daughters can't seem to get on. Morgan is a free spirit who just wants to have fun with her renegade friends, but Siobhan is more focused on popularity and networking with people who will help her career aspirations. The Munch family. Single mum Mila has never found it easy raising 3 kids, especially when the oldest one won't move out and the other is a rebellious, gloomy fucker. Thankfully though, her favourite child, Lucas, always makes her feel better about having to put up with the other 2 boys. Aww. We've got the Party House family, Marcus, Paolo, Jade and Eva. 4 party people living in the party town. Just 4 friends wanting to have a good time. Although, collectively, they don't have the best income. Because their priority seems to be partying, how do they pay rent? No one knows. Forget Bella Goth, this is the true mystery of The Sims 4. And finally, in Windenburg, we have the Villarreal family. I feel like I've been talking about Windenburg for years now. Thank God this is the last one. Okay, so Villarreal. Jax, the dad, has had his fair share of trauma, mainly because of his wife's mysterious disappearance. Where did she go? Well, it's still a mystery, but that means he was left as a single parent to 3 children. Thankfully, he has quite a lot of money in his pocket and a huge house, so when he gets sick of the kids, he can walk over to the other side of the house and just block them out. Luna and Hugo are well-behaved kids, but Max is a wild child who requires a lot of patience. Form an orderly queue, ladies. When you start playing as the families in Windenburg, they don't know other people in the neighbourhood if you check the relationship panel. But they are in clubs with other people in the neighbourhood, so you can start a gathering at any time, and apparently it would be the first gathering they've ever had. This world is slightly different, not in terms of storytelling lore, but there is at least a system in place for them to socialise, and whilst they may not know each other, they are at least connected by their clubs. The clubs included in Windenburg are the Avant-Gardes, Garden Gnomes, Spin Masters, Knights of the Hedge, League of Adventurers, Paragons, Party House, Powerhouse, Renegades, the Good Timers and Upper Crusts. Does this mean Windenburg has lore? Not in my opinion, because the families don't actually know each other, and there isn't any overlapping of stories as far as I can see, but it's a small step up from the First Worlds at least. Then came the City Living Pack, which introduced the lively city of San Myshuno. San Myshuno introduced many more families. You have Penny Pizzazz, the city's very own it girl. She writes reviews about the hottest and coolest spots in town. There's Karaoke Legends, a trio of friends living in an apartment together. Miko, Akira and Darling are very individual Sims who are connected by their passion for karaoke. And with Miko's secret crush on Akira, there may even be love in the air one day. The Rasoya family, consisting of successful chef Raj and his mother Geeta, who wants her son to settle down and find a nice girl to carry on the family line. Then there's the Feng family, Victor and Lily. Victor is a high-powered politician and Lily is a tough businesswoman. They work hard and want the world to know it. What they don't want everyone to know is that they secretly want to take over San Myshuno one day. We also have the Jang family, Beiko, Anaya and Billy. Couple Beiko and Anaya moved to San Myshuno because Beiko is an aspiring comedian and they wanted to give him the best chance of making it in the big city. Anaya has passions of her own too. She's a keen painter and loves singing. There's Diego Lobo, an established and notoriously tough art critic. Many artists want to please him, otherwise they'll never work in this town again. The Beader family. Jasminda and Aaron are expecting their first baby. However, they live in quite a small apartment. Will they be able to make room for the new bundle? Will Jasminda return to her mixology job after the baby is born, or will she pursue her passion of painting? And finally, we have Salim Bernali. He is determined to become a great writer. There's just one thing preventing him. You could call it laziness. There's always a video game to play or a nap to take. Will he ever apply himself and finish his novel? And before we knew it, vampires made their way to the game, and with them came the dark, spooky world of Forgotten Hollow. There were only 2 pre-made families this time. Count Vladislav Stroud, a 200-year-old vampire who founded the world and lives in a derelict mansion hidden away near the graveyard, and the Vator family. Young vampire siblings who are a bit more progressive than Vlad. They don't really agree with his old-fashioned views. The Vators try to avoid drinking plasma from Sims, but Vlad loves turning up at Sims' houses to steal a sip of their juicy plasma. Forgotten Hollow was a step in the right direction when it comes to lore, because this time around there was somewhat of a story between the 2 households. Sure, they didn't know each other in the relationship panel, but they were connected in some way through the storytelling. Of course, after dipping their toes in the lore pool, the Sims team didn't take long to pull out. Because with cats and dogs came Brindleton Bay, a seaside-esque homey neighbourhood with 3 families who don't know each other. There's the Hecking family, who were the first pre-made gay couple in The Sims 4. Brent and Brant are newlyweds who live with their dog Rosie. Brent is a keen painter and Brant loves exploring the outdoors. Near the seaside pier there's the Lynx household, consisting of cat lady Katerina, who lives in her cosy home with her many beloved cats. She can't seem to see a stray cat and not get tempted to expand the family. And then we have the Delgato family. Cypria, Justin, Pierce, Evie and their cats Blue and Bartholomew. Cypria definitely has her hands full as a stay-at-home mum, but she dreams of one day becoming a veterinarian. Justin is very supportive of her pursuing her dreams, but if he takes a break from work to stay at home, she worries he might not be able to handle the hectic work of running a household. Then Get Famous came out and we got Del Sol Valley, EA's answers to LA. Glamorously nestled in the Hollywood Hills, you have 2 celebrity homes. The Bailey Moon residence, consisting of Octavia, Thorne and their son, Orange. Am I the only one who thinks that's a reference to Gwyneth Paltrow's daughter Apple? Thorne is a successful performer in the music industry, and Octavia is a famous writer who actually wrote all of Thorne's biggest hits. There may be some friction in their marriage as Thorne's public image is starting to be impacted by the fans' realisation that the real talent seems to be coming from his wife. And just across the way there's Judith Ward, a global superstar who is a legend in the acting community. She's played pretty much any role you can think of. She didn't get there from not stepping on the little people though. Judith has a bad reputation and isn't the nicest person. She turns up around various places all the time, but amazingly, she's never ventured next door to meet her neighbours. Further away from the Hollywood Hills area, you have Vanessa Jung, an actress still trying to hit the big time. She doesn't know anyone either, although she may meet Judith at work if they're assigned to the same job. Then we have Strangerville. Now, of course, Strangerville has a storyline all on its own, which might not be the type of gameplay all Simmers would like, but for someone who really enjoys the storytelling in previous games, this was a welcomed adventure. Strangerville introduced 4 new households. There's the Eclectic Arts household, consisting of Alice, Mark and Leslie, just 3 friends who wanted to explore their inner creativity, so they waved goodbye to the modern world and settled in the quiet town of Strangerville. Then there's the Roswells, the oldest residents in Strangerville. Ted Roswell is the current mayor of the town and is determined to try and bring it into the 21st century, especially when it comes to improving their use of technology. Ted actually constructed the secret lab, a hidden lot in Strangerville, and spends a lot of time there. Although this is much to the concern of his wife Meredith, who has noticed some strange behaviour in him lately. There's also the Sigworth family, Jess, Dylan and Christy. The family moved to Strangerville because Jess was recently transferred to the national base there. However, similarly to the Roswell family, there's been some strange behaviour going on with Jess, and her husband wants to know why, especially before their daughter clocks onto it. Finally, there's George Carhill, a retired pilot who keeps himself to himself. His beloved plane Penelope actually crashed into Strangerville, so he's fashioned a home out of the remains and has lived quietly in Strangerville ever since then. Despite the storyline in the gameplay, the pattern continues of families not actually knowing or having any story with anyone outside of their household. So then we move on to the sunny world of Sulani, introduced with island living. I'm going to try my best to pronounce these names, and I apologise in advance if I butcher them. There's the Halpili family, consisting of Kiala, a spirited and knowledgeable elder who knows a lot about the cultural history of Sulani. Many younger Sims apparently go to her for advice and guidance. And she has recently taken her grandchild Leah under her wing. Then there's the Nagata family, Oleana, Layla and Tane, the game's first pre-made lesbian couple. Oleana and Layla are happily married and they live with Oleana's son Tane, who she had from a previous relationship. Also we have the Kiloa household, Makoa, Liliana, Nani and Dwayne, a tight-knit young family who want to honour the past of Sulani and build a bright future with the rest of the community. And lastly, there is the Kahana Nui family. Mele and Alika, who just want to settle down and enjoy their golden years in their dream retreat. Then we got the second occult-focused pack, Realm of Magic, which introduced Glimmer Brook and the hidden magical realm. Similarly to Forgotten Hollow, Glimmer Brook has only two pre-made families, the Charm Household and the Amicable Acolytes. Also, similarly to Forgotten Hollow, there's somewhat of a story between the households. Despite the non-existence of actual relationships, apparently Amelia is friends with her neighbour Tomax, and Tomax likes Amelia, but he isn't the biggest fan of Amelia's fiancé Daryl. Is there a bit of jealousy in the air perhaps? Will Tomax and Amelia end up together instead? It's up to you, but maybe you should introduce them first. If you make the trip to the magic realm, you'll likely meet the three sages. You'll meet Morgan Ember, the sage of untamed magic, Elle Faber, the sage of mischief, and finally there's Simon Silversweater, the sage of practical magic. Discover University introduced the classical world of Brychester, home to both the University of Brychester and the Foxbury Institute. There was a new lot type added in this pack, which was student housing, so your Sims could live in a student house with other students, or they could live in halls on college campus. So, starting with the households living in halls. In Brychester Uni, there's the best of friends. Julia Wright and Becca Clark have been besties since preschool, and they couldn't imagine going through university without each other. But will they stay best friends for their whole journey in university? Over to Foxbury Halls, there's the Fletcher household. Cameron Fletcher. He's a smart guy who's bound to do well academically, but he needs a little help when it comes to making friends and putting himself out there. In the centre of the universities, there's the middle area where anyone can live, and here you'll find two households. There's the Pleasant household, the twins Lilith and Angela, who you might recognise as they were originally featured in The Sims 2 as teens. This time around though, it seems sibling rivalry is in the past, as they're actually quite good friends. There is still a hint towards how opposite they are though. Lilith is studying at Foxbury and Angela is studying at Brychester. And finally, there's the Elderberry household. Ekram and Eleanor have lived in Brychester all of their lives and have decided to stay there for their retirement. They're somewhat thought of as the guardians of the area. Their teenage grandson Rohan has moved in with them while he prepares for university. Then we got the Eco Lifestyle Pack, and that introduced the world of Evergreen Harbour, giving us 4 pre-made families. There's the Harris family, Cletus, Faye, Jeb, Gideon and Francine. Cletus and Faye found the house they live in on the market for dirt cheap, so they didn't question what could be wrong with it to get such a good deal. The rest of the family joined the household, and now it's a full house. For some reason, Cletus's older brother always wears a bag on his head, and Faye is the only one with a job. Then there's the Sterling Rico house, consisting of Bess and Jules. Jules is a fashion-loving style influencer, and Bess is a civil designer and is pretty hands-on when it comes to convincing city officials and residents to enact the programs she supports. There's also the Greenberg family, who, fun fact, were actually created by Team Gnome from the Sims TV shows Sparked. Mary and Blossom are happily married. Mary is passionate about gardening, and Blossom loves painting. Knox is their adopted son, and he is determined to help make Evergreen Harbour as green as possible. And finally, there's the Tinker family, Yasmin, Tina and Olive. Tina is a freelance crafter and is very dedicated to her work. Yasmin works too, but unlike her wife, she makes a bit more time for their daughter Olive, and is often trying to convince Tina to relax and spend more time with the family. I've noticed in majority of the worlds up until this point that whilst there are family bios, there aren't many connections between households, which I've mentioned a few times already in this video, but this is where we start to see a turning point, because the next pack, Snowy Escape, introduced more lore than before. The family bios actually involve their neighbours, and there are existing relationships this time around, so when it comes to storytelling, I feel like Snowy Escape took it to the next level. So let's talk about Mount Komorebi and the 3 main families that live there. There's the Akiyama household, consisting of Kado, his wife Jenna and their children Taku and Miki. Jenna and Kado met while they were both living in the big city, but they decided to return to Mount Komorebi, where Kado was raised and wants to raise their own family. Kado's ex-girlfriend, Megumi Ito, also recently moved back to Mount Komorebi. She was his childhood sweetheart, but even though they shared a love once before, Kado is determined to focus on his own family and has no intentions of stirring the pot by rekindling an old romance with Megumi. Which takes us over to the Ito family. Megumi and her husband Naoki and their children, Kiyoshi and Nanami. Megumi is a gold medalist skier and her husband is a former medalist himself. The word on the street is that despite being married, Megumi's head is starting to turn now that Kado has recently moved back to the area. Naoki is a business-minded sim who only sees potential when he looks around Mount Komorebi. He has many plans to increase tourism, make more money, and modernise the historical world. Forbidden love seems to run in the family, as their son Kiyoshi has a crush on Kaori Nishidaki, who lives in the neighbourhood with her grandparents. The Nishidaki family are said to be the sacred guardians of Mount Komorebi, which probably explains why Shigeru isn't the biggest fan of the Ito family's local development plans. Sachiko likes Megumi though, as she had a good relationship with her mother. Their granddaughter Kaori moved to Mount Komorebi after the loss of her parents. She has 2 passions in life, the slopes and Kiyoshi Ito, the son of her grandfather's sworn enemy, but she hopes over time to melt her grandfather's hardened heart. And finally, we find ourselves in Henford-on-Bagley, and once again, we have lore, so let's talk about it. So we have the Watson family, and there's a lot to unpack here. There's Thomas, Rami, Rashida, Imran, and Myra. They live on a large farming estate that Thomas had inherited from his family. Thomas could be described as a little in over his head. He equates success to crop size and has had a bit of a knock to the old confidence. He actually doesn't have the best relationship with his wife Rami. And Rami has an it's complicated relationship with the town mayor. The game heavily suggests that Rami had an affair with the mayor, and although they called their fling quits, Rami still has feelings, so it seems to an onlooker that Rami wasn't the one who called things off with that affair. It's up to you as the player to decide whether they work on their marriage or whether Rami pursues things with the mayor. Rashida isn't about this country life and wants to move out of Henford on Bagley, and the two younger kids, Imran and Myra, couldn't be more opposite. Myra is ambitious and loves adventuring, whereas Imran prefers the comforts of home. Before I move on to the other households in this world, I just want to touch on families that aren't placed in the world because they play a role in the story. So obviously there's the mayor, we already spoke about her. But there's also the return of old character Agnes Crumplebottom, who featured in all the previous Sims games. Agnes now lives with her cousin Agatha, and together they run a flower shop. Agnes hasn't changed much since the last time we saw her. She still gets pissy when Sims nearby are overly affectionate near her. Then there's Michael Ball, also known as the Creature Keeper. He lives in a small cottage hidden away in the Bramblewood. His job is to take care of the environment and watch over the animals. He also is pretty good when it comes to crafting. He makes clothing for the animals and sells it to the locals. He'll always have a job for you if you ask him if he needs help with errands, and he has a little bit of history with one of the locals. He once went on a very awkward date with Cecilia Kang, and they haven't spoken since. Which takes me on to the A New Start household, which is basically Cecilia Kang. Cece hasn't had the best of luck when it comes to romance. She's had her heart broken in the big city, and so she moved here, only to have bad luck on her date with Michael. They say if your luck is that bad, maybe you might be the problem, love. We also have the Moody and Macmillan family. Elderly couple Derek and Ian are a key part of the community and are happy to spend their retirement years in the fresh countryside. And finally, we have the Scott family. Simon and Sarah are the owners of the local pub, the Gnome's Arms. They agreed to pursue Sarah's dream of running a pub in the countryside. Simon is still getting used to it. He's a city boy at heart, but is prepared to give up on the city lifestyle for the love of his life. Oh, ain't that sweet? Just as well, really, because they're hoping to start a family any day now. So, that's a brief overview of every family in every world. The reason why I did this was to look at how the storytelling has progressed over time, and I'm pleased to see that more depth and lore has been added to the game. You can see this mainly in Snowy Escape and Cottage Living, which are the two latest expansion packs, so I hope that this continues in the future worlds that we get. Of course, this doesn't take away from the initial disappointment of the alternative timeline and the lack of story progression from the previous games. I still feel annoyed about that to this day. Still wonder if Bella was ever found, or if Lilith and Angela's parents stayed together after the affair. Did Cassandra ever give things a go with Darren Dreamer? So many questions left unanswered, and honestly, I don't think they ever will be answered, which is frustrating. But the storytelling in The Sims 4 has got better. So even though it still doesn't offer the same level of storytelling in previous games, it's improved over time, and I think it's important to notice that. It's kind of like they took a shit on the carpet and rubbed it in, but at least now they've picked up some of that shit up. There's a stain remaining, sure, but at least they scooped up some of that shit. I would love to know what you think about this. Do you think it's good that we're getting more crossover with households? Let me know in the comments. Now though, I think this video is probably long enough, so I'm going to end it here. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe, you know I love it when you do that, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.